Most applicants think networking is just introducing yourself at conferences. But what if the relationships you build before you even apply could completely change the trajectory of your CRNA journey? In this episode, Seana Lee shares how intentional networking, mentorship, and positioning helped turn opportunities into acceptance, and why the strongest applicants often build connections long before they submit their applications. Welcome back to the CRNA Mentor Podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Seana Lee, a first-year SRNA at Virginia Commonwealth University. What makes this conversation unique is that Seana didn't just attend Mid-Year Assembly last year. She used it strategically to build relationships, gain mentorship, and ultimately strengthen her application in a way that led to acceptance. This episode is really about networking, but not just surface-level networking. This is about how you position yourself, build real relationships, and create opportunities that most applicants completely miss. Welcome to the podcast, Seana.
Hi, Tyler. Thanks for having me and thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I am Seana. I'm a first-year SRNA at Virginia Commonwealth University.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining us today, Seana. The very interesting thing about this specific episode is I had this big idea, and you were certainly prepared for it, of actually shooting this episode live at Mid-Year Assembly this year, which would have been really cool because we met first at Mid-Year Assembly last year. And I thought, wow, why don't we just kind of find like an offshoot of the room, even of the main area, and we could record this episode. And, when we got to the point of where we had this kind of planned out, I didn't talk to 1,000 people, but it felt that way. And my voice was pretty much nearly gone. And among other things, we were unable to pull it off. So maybe next year we could do an episode here at Mid-Year Assembly. But that's one of the reasons we had a little gap in our scheduling here with the CRNA Mentor Podcast is we were, trying to make this happen all natural. And Seana, we're here today and we're going to talk all about networking, which is, what Mid-Year Assembly is all about. And like I said, that's where I first met you. And, before we get into Mid-Year Assembly and networking, let's talk about what initially drew you towards the path of CRNA.
Sure. I'm originally from South Korea. I moved here about 15 years ago. I wanted to pursue my education and support my family. So my path to anesthesia wasn't exactly a straight line like other people. Before CRNA school, I was actually working as a nurse practitioner in a pre-anesthesia clinic. And before that, I spent most of my time in ICU, mostly in CVICU, and I worked in the emergency room. I really enjoyed being a nurse practitioner and appreciated training I got, but I kind of missed that. I realized I missed that being in the thick of it. I missed that high stakes, one-on-one critical care settings, and hands-on skills. There's a specific kind of split second of precision and calm that CRNAs bring to emergency and a team. I just knew that was exactly what I want to belong, that I want to do. So I decided to pursue my passion and go back to school.
That's great. I talked to a lot of mentees that were nurse practitioners before. And we had a couple episodes ago, we talked about the dual certification, acute care nurse practitioner and CRNA in one. And I think, what I'm trying to encourage my nurse anesthesia residents to do is to think like a provider. And that's exactly where you were before you started CRNA school. So I this perspective, I always tell people all these roles and jobs in healthcare are all additive to being a CRNA and offering this perspective, but especially, your background working in a pre-op clinic. I mean, that's when we're going through charts at our ambulatory surgery center and approving patients, are they a good candidate for coming to this center? You already have that experience. Seana, prior to coming online, we were talking about networking and becoming a CRNA. And you said something that was very powerful. You said, opportunities are everywhere, like the wind, but you need a sail to catch them. What does that mean in the context of becoming a CRNA?
Yeah, I really do believe that opportunities are everywhere, just like wind, but you can control when it blows or where it comes from. What you can control is your preparation. So to me, that preparation is your sail. So if you don't build it ahead of time, the opportunities just passes you by. You might just miss it. You don't even know you actually missed it. So the example of sailing for me was a lot of quiet, intentional work behind the scenes before anyone was watching. that was actually before conference.
That's great. And this preparation before the conference, it looks different for many people. But one of the big reasons I wanted to bring you on, aside from your extreme ability to network at mid-year and as we connected last year, is the preparation that you put into it. And this is really the focus of this entire episode, because preparation for all things, especially CRNA, are critical, even networking. Now, before you showed up to mid-year assembly last year, you were already preparing. What does this preparation actually look like?
I say it was a little bit of my homework and also being intentional. I crafted very short, impactful, maybe 30-second introduction about myself and who I am and why I'm doing this path. And I updated my resume and update my LinkedIn profile and even a profile in the conference, like specific conference app. I also made sure I actually understood the current legislative issues before I walk into the door, because I wanted to be ready for any types of conversation. I want to belong there. So I did my homework.
That's incredible. Even it's this attention to detail. You mentioned even making sure that you're referring to the meetings app that we have for the conference. You have the ability to put your information in there. You never know who's going to see that, and that's just that attention to detail is really also what networking is about. You said you got your LinkedIn ready. You had all these things ready to go. To capitalize. If these opportunities came, and they certainly came for you in terms of meeting people and networking. You talked about this creating this kind of brief introduction. How did you go about crafting that, and why is that so important?
When you are in a high energy environment like mid-year assembly, you only have a few seconds to make an impression. I want to keep it simple, concise, but also personal, because everybody has their own stories. And sure enough, I got hit with several questions, several times with the questions, why do you want to do this? And why don't you stay in a nurse practitioner? It sounds like a very simple icebreaker, but it's actually major task. If you just say, oh, I want to help people, I think it's way too vague. And faculties and CRNAs, they want to know how serious you are, and you actually understand what you're signing up for. Because the reality is, that stress is high, the liability is massive, and then I prep for it like real interview. So I actually kind of talked to myself first few times, but talking and over again, I feel more comfortable talking about myself. And I also use that as a chance to ask some sort of genuine feedback on my unique background as a nurse practitioner moving to anesthesia.
That's perfect. And, this is in a sense like a mini interview. And I think that's a great way to approach this is, you are at all times at these meetings trying to remain professional, but also having these kind of sound bites of what you can offer as an applicant. And kudos to the AANA this past year at mid-year assembly. They had interviews with program faculty that offered to sign up for some of our RNs, APRNs that were in attendance. And that's what I keep telling members of the AANA is that, we need to provide more and more value to these RNs and APRNs as they continue to make up, a good portion of our attendees at these conferences. But approaching mid-year assembly, any interaction, even these hallway conversations, are like mini interviews, right? Seana, when you got to mid-year assembly, what was your mindset walking in? Are you somebody that's like super outgoing, that you're, I'm here, I'm ready to talk to everybody, I'm ready to shake hands, or how did you approach this?
I would say I'm an outgoing person, but internally I am not. So I think this time around, or even last year, I just really found myself that I could be different, and I could train myself to be different than I want to be. I consciously choose to carry the mindset of future colleagues and future profession, not just applicant looking for a need. In my mind, I think I was almost manifesting it. I kind of act like I was already in SRNA or CRNA, and I attended literally most of workshops, meeting, except the residence one. But I attended this year. It's all about showing up and offering genuine interests and sharing your experience.
So, Sana, one of the things that really impressed me with your networking last year was you were, kind of omnipresent. You're talking to all these different people, and I was blown away by our interaction. And later at the PAC event, I had a CRNA that came up to me that specifically mentioned your name and had the same impression that I did. Um, let's talk a little bit about you precepted someone who later became your mentor. How did that relationship evolve and impact your path as a CRNA?
So years ago, I was a senior nurse in CVICU. I got to train many newly hired nurses in our units, which was my favorite part of my career. And one of them was Jacob Bonema. He was an excellent. He was a fast learner. He's now a CRNA and an advocate leader. Over time, our professional dynamics naturally evolved, and as I started thinking, looking toward anesthesia, he became my crucial mentor. He challenged my perspectives and pushed me think even bigger. He really helped me navigate whole path together. He actually introduced me to the Mid-Year Assembly last year, and I volunteered to come again because it's so amazing. And I didn't train him years ago thinking that he would do a favor for me one day. But by doing that, I built a reputation and he became the wind in my sail. So you never know. The person you teach today might be the person who guides you tomorrow. Mentorship is not just one way street. I think it's just mutual respect.
I love that. And, going from, you're his preceptor to he is your mentor, that is nursing. That is nurse anesthesia. And that is really what fuels me as I go through this path and try and, bring out all the best in people if I can and kind of harness that energy. If I, one of the reasons I'm having you on the episode today, Senna, is because I see something special in you and I know that you're going to impact this profession. And honestly, that's how all these things work. I know Jake, he really made an impact early on. And shout out to Jake. We're going to have you on the CRNA Mentor podcast here shortly to talk about all of his work with advocacy. But it's one of those things that mentorship. You're not asking for anything in return. You're just genuinely trying to help. One of the things, Senna, that I wanted to talk about, and you had attended my RN meet and greet at Mid-Year Assembly last year, is this theme that I keyed in on, which is all in. And this is the Mid-Year Assembly theme that you said really resonates with you. What did going all in actually look like in your journey?
For me, going all in is not just checking boxes for an application. It was about being proactive and really immersing myself in a community. I really took that mid-year assembly theme to my heart. I showed up early and prepared and fully engaged. I attended most of the workshops, as I mentioned, and meetings, and I even attended Capitol Hill visit as a nurse status. I remembered dragging myself 7 in the morning wellness lecture, and I was exhausted. It was third day. Usually by third day of conference, people are drained. But when your speaker sees you there early in the morning, I I believe they know that you got discipline. We have about less than 8 people, about 8 people, and the wellness is one of my favorite topic as well. We ended up having a real great organic conversations, and it happened to be the speaker was one of my top choice of school, and it really taught me that sometimes just showing up early is the best way to advocate yourself without saying any single word.
So one of the things that you mentioned there, Senna, is attending the Capitol Hill visits and talking to the legislators as a nurse. This actually turned into a powerful part of your application. Can you walk me through that? Because I feel like last year there really wasn't a whole lot of nurses that attended this. This year, I think the attendance was a little bit better from our nurses. But tell me about your experience as a nurse going to Capitol Hill.
As a nurse and as a current student, I think it really means a lot to me. And then I learned so much about advocacy at the conference. But I realized if I don't speak up, if I don't raise my voice, someone else is actually make a rule or policy for you. Last year, on the second day of Hill visits, all of the residents had to head back to school. So it ended up being just me and Illinois PAC Federal Director. So
Wow.
instead of stepping back, I stepped up. So we spent entire day hitting all the meetings together. She was so inspiring, and she actually gave me the floor to speak directly with legislative staff. I didn't think that I'm gonna speak, but again, I prepared just in case. So I was able to share my experience, my firsthand stories, what it was like as a nurse and nurse practitioner in South Side of Chicago. When I got home, I made sure to follow up with her, and the one connection opened massive door. She set up the opportunity for me to shadow outpatient surgical center because I want to see different practice setting as a CRNA. And I could observe the pediatric cases, which I loved it. And it was a 3 hour drive each way, but I didn't hesitate for a second. I just got in a car and made it happen. That relationship eventually led to direct line to a local program director. Even though I found that my specific qualifications weren't really matching for that program, but that clarity just saved me months of second guessing, and it just let me pivot fast and then put my energy exactly where it's supposed to be.
I love that. That's so powerful. This idea of putting yourself out there. First off, going to Capitol Hill. And I just want to touch on that a little bit. Is that when you go there, you will see that not all CRNAs are super, super comfortable talking to these legislators. And it's often, these team leads that are going to, carry the bulk of the conversation. But when you get an opportunity to speak, just as you did, you speak from your stories, from your
Mhm.
personal experience. And that's what you learn in mid-year. Like that's what you should be sharing with the legislators. But there's certainly nerves to it, myself included. Talking to these legislators, it can be intimidating, but you're putting yourself out there, and all these doors opened up because you did that, and you didn't shy away from that 3 hour drive. It's like, wow, the more that I can do to kind of facilitate my growth, I'm going to do whatever it takes, and that's the mentality that really allows you to explore all these opportunities. And I will tell you, as a CRNA, as a mentor to many, the individuals that put forth that extra effort, those are the ones that I tell them, here's my network, right? Here's all these relationships that I'm building nationally, regionally, and I want to help you explore all these opportunities, because the more that we can have this connectivity and this ability to network and boost each other up, I'm going to help pretty much anybody that reaches out to me. But those individuals that I see something special in, I'm going to do even more to allow them to grow and really make an impact in this profession. Um, how did you, Senna, go about identifying people to approach as you went about networking? Did you have kind of, obviously maybe your target programs, but how did you identify these people and seek them out in these conferences?
Yeah, I completely agree. Just wandering around a conference, just passing out your resume, doesn't really work. For me, it had to be again intentional. Before the
Mhm.
event even started, I kind of like reviewed all the conference contents, and that specific conference app is so handy. Has a lot of good information
Mhm.
about speakers and contents. So I picked topics I was genuinely interested in, and it mapped out my schedule because some classrooms are overlapping between different rooms. Um, and it just gave me a real talking points because I'm just speaking intentionally about the topic and speakers. In fact, during one of the conversation I had about clinical aspects, ideas, a speaker pointed out that my concept would make a perfect doctoral project. So I thought it was kind of light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year some nurses actually brought the creative, printed out the business cards and putting a QR codes in the back. And I thought it was
Mhm.
creative. It's something, something unique about it. And, it shows that you're prepared.
Mhm. Now, Senna, when you meet these individuals, you talked to me before we went on air about this 24-hour follow-up goal. What is that, and why is that so important to networking?
So the work, the relationship you build, it doesn't stop when you come when the conference ends. I made it a point to send a thank you email or LinkedIn invite within maybe 24 to 48 hours, while the conversation is still fresh. I always mention the specific details that we talk about. It turns out 5 minutes chat into a lasting connection. That rule is how it worked exactly with Illinois PAC federal director back home, and also I got several great feedbacks from that relationship and continuing that conversation through follow up from programs.
That's excellent. One of the things I want to kind of pivot into talk about here, Senna, you have a little bit of a different mentality than some other applicants that I talk to, and I just want to highlight that a little bit in regards to CRNA school. You had mentioned that a lot of other applicants saw each other as competition. You saw them as future classmates. Why do you have this perspective, and how has that helped you in where you're at right now as a first year nurse anesthesia resident?
Honestly, I actually want to shout out to AANA and then Tyler organizing RN and RN meet and greet, which was absolutely great from whole conference. And the vibe was really so encouraging. And for the first time, it feels like I am really belong to that community. I get to talk to residents and chat with the faculty members. It just made whole process feel more like human. And I met incredible group of nurses there. We all have the same goals, and we just clicked. And it's funny because on the paper, technically we're all competing each other,
Right.
but we all know that getting to school is stressful. It's a challenging, and it's easy to fall in the trap that seeing everyone as a threat. But that mindset actually might hold you back, because when things get intense in the OR, you need to know your team has your back instantly. So we started talking, we started acting like a team right there. We send supportive messages each other, and we're all from different states and celebrating each other's win. For example, like getting an interview opportunities, and we're so happy for each other. And then I even introduced a nurse who was eyeing on my exact program in my state, to a coworker of mine who had just been accepted to that program, and we are fighting for the same dream. So why not support each other now? She shared so much study materials and ended up actually getting more help from her. The best part, actually, three of us in our group ended up choosing the same program. So we are
Oh, wow.
all classmates and
Oh,
we
that's
see you.
great.
Yes. And I just really think that helping each other doesn't really take away from your opportunities. It actually creates them. The kind of collaboration is the best part of anesthesia, and that's exactly what I love this profession.
I love that, Senna. That's amazing, and the fact that you're classmates now makes it even better. This kind of goes hand in hand with what we had talked about before we went on air. You talked about this pay it forward loop. You kind of alluded to that in that response, but can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. To me, the pay forward loop means that the help you receive during your toughest moments shouldn't just stop with you. It's your responsibilities to pass it on to the next person. So my program VCU allows us to work a bit during the second semester. So I took a part-time position as a clinical instructor and nursing program at Marymount University. It actually became the most rewarding part of my life. I still remember when I was completely overwhelmed and I got so much support, overwhelmed and I got rejections and I got so much support. And I had over 2 hours. It was a 2 hours mock interview with you. It was intense, but it was so helpful. And honestly, I wish that my interviewer in a real interview asked me more questions because I prepared so much with you. Um, People invested their time in me, and when they didn't have to. Now when I see my own nursing students getting anxious about clinicals, I get to be the one to lift them up, and that's what the loop is all about.
Yep, 100%. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, Senna, is you had this opportunity to participate in a class at your top choice program. What did that experience give you that others might be missing out on?
So I actually took things a step further and reached out to the program manager at my top choice school to
Mm.
see if I could sit on a class and meet those current students. And I want to see the reality of the program for myself and get a genuine feel for the culture, which is important.
Okay.
That kind of validation is so, I think, is crucial because you are just choosing a school, you are choosing your life for the next 3 years.
Hmm.
So I flew from Chicago to Virginia,
Wow.
and you gotta make sure that the environment matches for your expectation before you dive in, and getting to know student dynamics firsthand really gave me a level of confidence. Um, those information you can get it from the website, and I also managed to shadow CRNAs over 40 hours in all different hospitals, and that experience just along the journey, I made so many mentors and basically their teachers, their guidance, and just really getting to know profession, and it really like solidified my decision.
Wow, Senna, it's so impressive all the different things that you've done, and really, it seems like at the drop of a hat, it's like this door opens, I'm going there. Whether it means jumping on a plane and flying just to attend a class, but the subtle thing here, and you are probably aware of this, is for these programs, that you are interested in, that this is your top program, and you're asking, hey, can I come to class? I live in Illinois, but I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to go and attend this class. That says volumes about your commitment to that program, right? Obviously, if you had 5, 10 programs, you're not doing that all around the
No.
country. But it really should. No, it really shows how important this program is to you. And I'm sure the program faculty and directors really appreciate that when they have individuals like yourself that you know door opens, drop of a hat, okay, I'm going to class here. That's amazing, and great job on making that experience happen for yourself here. um Senna, at any point, you're doing so much, right? You're attending these conferences, you're flying to attend these classes, you're networking. At any point, did this feel like it was too much? And if so, what kind of kept you going?
So I think that the relationship really kept me going. I realized this process wasn't just fighting for a seat in a classroom. It was about becoming a part of real community. Seeing how these CRNAs and residents and generally they really care about the profession and each other. And that was my fuel. And when you realize that you aren't just competing, but you are joining a legacy, it starts to feel like an investment. I learned something valuable from every single experience, and I met great people along the way, and I get to know about myself even more. And I'm just so grateful for every process.
Couldn't say it better myself. I mean, this idea of shifting from this competition to, this is a collective effort, and that's largely what I'm trying to do with CRNA mentors, is really harness this energy, and you certainly have done that. Senna, as we wrap this up, if somebody is listening to this right now and they feel intimidated by networking, what would you tell them?
I completely get it. For a long time, especially coming from a traditional Asian background, I was naturally more passive and shy. I feel like asking for help was just sign of weakness or that I was being a burden to someone else. But through mentors, reading, and podcasts, my perspective completely shifted. When you try to navigate this path alone, I think you limit your own growth. being vulnerable and asking for help is actually proactive strength. I think it gives actually other people the opportunities to invest in you and help you. So don't take it away, that opportunity from other people. I know you also mentor high school students. They don't have coworkers like Jake yet, but they have platforms like a TikTok or Facebook where leaders like you have built global mentorship network. The connection matters actually everywhere, especially for them, whether it could be through their neighbors or volunteering, shadowing, or workshop. I actually had volunteered to give a local high school students a feel for the CRNA profession through VCU, and that was really good experience. And more than anything, I wanted to see that asking for help isn't is not a burden. It's a how you build your sail to catch the wind, which is future opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. And this idea of networking, it's all around us. And I think that there's going to be more and more plentiful opportunities to do that. It's just something, as you mentioned, you have to embrace, right? And look, explore what is out there to learn about this profession. You mentioned, the social media platforms. But I think more than anything, attending these conferences, getting in front of people, shaking hands, introducing yourself, putting yourself out there. That's how all these doors open for you. And I would encourage to, any of our listeners today who are, unsure about how to do this. It really starts with you just putting yourself out there and showing up. This episode, for everyone who's listening, this episode isn't just about networking. It's about how you position yourself in this journey. And Senna, she didn't just check boxes. She built relationships, she sought mentorship, and she created opportunities before she even applied to school. And that's really the big difference from being eligible to being competitive as an applicant. Senna, I really want to thank you for sharing all of your experience and your network strategy with everybody who is listening today. And as always, if you found value in this episode, share this with somebody who may need some encouragement, maybe somebody who's struggling with networking. And thank you for listening to the CRNA Mentor podcast. And thank you again, Senna, for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care, Senna.
Bye.